welcome to my video. Today I want to take a look at Dawn and Candace's very first interview that they done. I've got several points that I want to cover. The lack of emotion, because Dawn has got some pain going on, and also you can see the way that he is trying to stay with the story. Candace too, she just goes through it sentence by sentence. There's no deviation for her. She shows some pain also. I want you to watch her facial expressions really closely. I want you to notice a lot of things in this video and leave comments. Let's discuss it. And I want to cover Candace's timeline versus Grandma's timeline. Of course, we don't have that from Grandma's mouth. It come from Grandma's friend on another creator's channel. So I'm just going to kind of retell that. We want to look at Don and his facial features. We want to take a hard look at Don saying there's no evidence. We want to look at him discussing the truck. We want to discuss Summer's shaved head, the abduction, the searchers being in the woods. So I'm just going to go through. I'm not going to play absolutely every second of the interview, but we are going to cover most of it. It's going to be a long video. I'm predicting around 30 minutes. I'm going to try to keep it as short as possible, but, you know, I'm an Aries, and I just cannot keep my mouth shut, and these are things that I've noticed and things that have come out lately from what they said then and what they're saying now. So I just wanted to go over them in depth and in some detail. All right, let's get started with the interview. This interview come from a news station. I will put all the links, anybody's stuff I use, the links will be in the description box. And just remember that this is all about Summer. And if anybody has any information, please call 1-800-TBI-FINE or the Hawkins County Sheriff's Department at 423-272-4848. Okay, let's get into the video, guys.
By herself or off this yard by her swing. I feel in my heart that somebody has came up here and took her, has lured her away from here. Me and my mother and her were planting flowers, and we went in after we got done washing our hands, and she got a piece of candy from Grandma, and she wanted to go back over and see her brothers, and I said okay, and I walked her all the way over to the porch, and I watched her walk into the kitchen where the boys were watching TV, and I told the boys, I said, watch Summer, I'll be back. And within 2 minutes I came back, and I asked the boys where their sister was, and they said, she went downstairs, Mom, to play with her toys in the playroom. I said, okay. And I yelled downstairs for her a couple times, and I didn't get no answer, which was unusual because usually she always answers me. And so I went down there to check, and she was nowhere in sight. She was just gone.
Okay, Candace, they unloaded groceries. She went over to fix Grandma's knee. They planted flowers in that little cactus bed where they put the little Chase character. And Candace says, I took my eyes off of her for 2 minutes. I went back over there in 2 minutes after she asked the boys to watch them and asked the boys, where's your sister? They said downstairs. She went downstairs looking for her. And Candace says she was just gone. Just gone. Vanished into thin air. My question here is, did the boys really see her? Did Summer plant flowers? Did she even get out of the truck? Let's hear Grandma's side. Grandma's timeline. According to Grandma, according to Grandma's friend, who was recorded on another creator's channel, this is what Grandma told her. Grandma told her that Candace, H, the minor, and Summer picked her up from the ER, and they went to Warrior's Path. That's the swimming hole. Grandma said she stayed in the truck for a while to get some minutes on her phone, but then she did go down to the water. Summer told her that she didn't feel good and that she was cold. Summer had chills, was sleepy, and was very thirsty, she said. Grandma changed her into the outfit that she had bought her in an attempt to warm her up, of course. Then they went to Sonic and got slushies, which doesn't make sense to me. If she had chills, why would you buy the child a slushie? But anyway, then they went to the grocery store. We've got conflicting stories on how long that took, of course. But Grandma said that they got home at around 3:30. Grandma said that that's the last time that she saw Summer alive, was when they got home. Grandma said that she went into her camper to take a nap. They did not plant flowers. None of that happened, is what she told this lady. Now, all this is allegedly. We don't know this to be fact. Grandma said that Candace texted Dawn about Summer being sick, and I guess Dawn told her to bring her to him so that he could okay whatever was going to happen next. You know, we all know Dawn was in control. So Candace and Summer left in Grandma's truck to go meet Dawn, and Grandma went in and took a nap. She slept for a couple hours, she said. Then at 5:30, she heard Candace come back. She says she only heard one car door, and that next thing she knew, Candace was screaming and hollering that Summer was gone. Summer was gone. Summer's not here. Grandma said after that, I guess they went and looked for Summer, but couldn't find her. So, of course, Candace called Dawn again, and Dawn said to call 911. Okay, again, this was not told by Grandma herself. It was allegedly told by Candace Hara, Grandis, to her friend, who then told it to a YouTube creator. So therefore, it is hearsay. But let's just say, hypothetically, this is what happened. First of all, why would you call Dawn to ask about taking Summer to the doctor? Why would you ask anyone's permission to take your child to the ER, especially if they were in crisis? If Grandma's story is true, this alleged story, then they did not plant flowers, and she did not send Summer over to the house. She did not ask the boys to watch her. And it blows the 2-minute theory slap out of the water, the 5-minute theory, because the last time that Grandma seen Summer alive, or seen Summer at all, was at 3:30 p.m. Now, all this supposedly happened on June 15th. Now, remember that, because that's going to be important later on. She come back at 5:30, and within minutes was screaming, Summer's gone, I can't find Summer. So that means that the boys did not see her. She was not playing with her toys. And that 2 minutes was actually 2 hours while she drove at least halfway to Jonesboro, maybe further, to meet Dawn to see if she could take Summer to the doctor or if she needed to take Summer to the doctor. Now, We know that Don's in control, and he, in my opinion, is a narcissist and is going to control everything. And I was married to a narcissist. My late husband was very narcissistic. He was an evil narcissist, actually. But if that would have been my child or my dog, I mean, I was too old to have a small child. If that was my grandchild or my dog, you think I would have asked his permission to take them to the hospital? Hell no. I'd have jumped in that truck and took her straight on. Matter of fact, they should have never come back to the house. Now, I understand that Grandma Candy had already been to the hospital and been there half the day. But when your granddaughter has the chills like that and is thirsty and saying she doesn't feel good, and you already suspect that she's sick enough to take to the emergency room, then you need to take her. You don't need anybody's permission. I don't care how much of a narcissist they are. It could be Satan himself would not stop me from taking my child or my grandchild or my dog to the doctor if I had to. So these right here, this just starting off the very first minute and 40 seconds of the interview, Candace is lying, or Grandma's lying.
The FBI, the police, and clear it up. I mean, I don't know, it seems kind of elusive. The FBI, the police, and clear it up. I mean, I don't know, it seems kind of elusive. The FBI, the
According to the Oxford Dictionary, the definition of elusive is difficult to find, catch, or achieve, difficult to remember or recall. Dawn should be very familiar with the word elusive. The elusive evidence in this case is a prime example of how familiar Dawn is with certain definitions. Coming up next is a clip that was not included in this interview, but was a soundbite that I used. So let's take a listen.
They don't have no evidence, and there's no way they could ever have evidence because it's impossible.
Wow. Just wow. That, like, blows my mind. Things that make go, Impossible, he says. There's no evidence because there's not going to be any because that's impossible. Well, according to the Oxford Dictionary, the definition of impossible is not able to occur, exist, or be done. Well, why is that, Don? Why is it impossible? They can't charge anybody. It can't be done because no evidence exists because it didn't occur. Correct? I mean, how would you know that? Why would you say that it is impossible to find evidence? Not able to occur, exist, or be done. So why are we all even looking, according to you, Don? I mean, why are we still crying every day and praying every day? And why are you still not charged with anything, you or Candace? Even if you didn't have nothing to do with her going missing, or maybe her death, perhaps, if she's dead, which I believe she is. The essay, the physical abuse, the neglect, her teeth, the mattress, all these things that we have seen with our very own eyes. All these lies we've heard with our very own ears. And you or Candace, either one, have still not been charged with anything. You got a probation violation and a DUI in the same night and walked out of jail on your own signature.
It's really strange that I've never seen this truck, and I've never heard of it until just recently. But I wish they would come forward and explain themselves. I mean, if you're not a suspect, at least come forward and say what you've seen.
You've not seen that truck. You have no knowledge of that truck, huh? Well, I believe it was just a few days ago, maybe a week ago, when you were saying that Jody Sue's mom had a truck just like that. Something's fishy. I believe that that's a lie. I believe you know exactly who has a truck like that. Because you said you did. So this brings us to right off the bat, they started blame shifting. A red truck. Then they blamed their neighbor Fred. Then they blamed Jody Sue. Something's up with her, they said. Her husband. H said that he's the one that sent the text that said it's done. I mean, come on, y'all.
She was a tomboy. I shaved my head. She wanted to have her head shaved like me and the boys did.
She tried to shave her head
She tried
in
to
the
shave her head
back and make
herself.
it, I think you can see it in some of the pictures, and it was getting out of control, so we decided to shave her head off and let it grow back long, and she shaved her head to so she wouldn't feel bad, and but it didn't bother her at this point.
It didn't bother her at this point, Dawn says. She shaved her head because she is a tomboy, Candace said. Could it be that her head got shaved because she had lice? And, you know, what was the deal? What do you mean so she wouldn't feel bad? So her head wouldn't itch anymore? So she wouldn't have to get it combed out with the medicine? What do you mean so she wouldn't feel bad? I just don't understand that. But it doesn't bother her. Not at this point. At what point, Dawn? What point is that? Maybe because she's no longer around for it to bother her? Could that be why it no longer bothers her at this point? I want y'all to watch this man's facial expressions. Watch his eyes. The eyes are the window to the soul. I want y'all to watch his eyes in every clip in this video. Shaved her head so she wouldn't feel bad. Doesn't bother her. Not at this point, he said. That is just crazy as hell. That's another thing that just makes me go, And it seems like the two of y'all are telling two different stories. You're saying Summer was shaving her own head in the back and it got out of hand, you said. You know. And then Candace, says it's because she's a tomboy. Which is it? So far, we have seen that Candace has a lack of emotion. We've seen that Candace's timeline does not even come close to jiving with Grandma's timeline. We've seen that Dawn knows the very definition of elusive. We've seen that Dawn says it's impossible, absolutely impossible, to have any kind of evidence. That's probably because there is none. And that's exactly what he was saying, is there is none. There isn't any because there is no body left to find. The only way that it would be impossible to find any evidence is for there to no longer be a body. Another lie that people have been caught in is somebody saying now that they went to school with Don and David Dodson way back when Don had a red truck. So, David Dodson is a licensed funeral director and a licensed embalmer. Not legally, but I believe this child may have been cremated. Whether Mr. Dodson's involved or not, I don't know. I sure hope not. But if he is, he's the key. I don't understand, with the lack of evidence, why he's not being questioned. It just is beyond me. Also, we have seen that they talked about the truck. Jody Sue's mom has that red truck. Robin's husband had a red truck. Who reported the red truck to law enforcement? Some kind of power line worker, I think, that law enforcement trust. Well, I personally, and it's my opinion, everybody's innocent till proven guilty, but I think the truck was a diversion tactic. I think the truck is a red herring, not a red Sonoma. I don't think there is a truck. H claims that Jody Sue's husband Andy sent a text saying it's done, and Candace had 13 deleted texts in her phone. Now, come on. I mean, it is just inconsistency. Red flag, red flag, red flag. Now, here's another clip that come from an interview that Don Wells did with somebody. I can't remember. I found it in my summer file of stuff I had saved. And I went back over it and I found some pretty interesting things in it. I think he was talking to like a media company or something. It was during the time all the billboards were going up. Let's listen to what he says here where he talks about somebody abducting her.
There was never somebody that just disappeared without a clue that I know of. I'm sure it happens, but nothing I've ever seen in my life.
Well, when there's an abduction, I mean, what else would you call it?
Yeah.
Disappearing. I don't understand that.
What the hell? Did Don just say Luciferian? Yes, I am absolutely positive that he did. Let's listen to that again.
When there's an abduction, I mean, what else would you call it?
Yeah.
Disappearing. I don't understand that.
Yes, he did. He said it. And you know, that aligns up with what she was telling me in the dream about some of the activities and some of the people that her parents would let her leave with for days, and then they would bring her back home. She detailed things that I'm not willing to say here.
So yeah, somebody was either hiding in the weeds there, waiting for the shade, either come in the basement. But yeah, I mean, we weren't 30 feet. They weren't 30 feet away when she got gone. Well, when there's an
blip, 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 blip. What? We weren't. She weren't. They weren't. We. Let's listen to that again.
abduction, I mean, what else would you call it?
Yeah.
Disappearing. I don't understand that. You know. But yeah, somebody was either hiding in the weeds there, waiting for the shade, either come in the basement. But yeah, I mean, we weren't 30 feet. They weren't 30 feet away when she got gone. Yeah. I mean, maybe 40 at the most.
Right.
I don't know.
Okay.
So somebody's looking at her.
So that's a pretty interesting piece of audio right there. First they say Luciferian. He definitely said Luciferian. Then he says that gal. Indicating that somebody else was there. Then he goes into the we weren't 30 feet. Because he was at home. He wasn't at work like he said. Then he said we
She weren't, we weren't, she weren't, they weren't. And I guess when he was saying they, he was talking about the kids and Grandis and Candace. And then we got a couple Class A EVPs in there. Somebody from the underworld told us that David did it. Now, David has always been the number 2 suspect. Well, the 1 or 2. Him and Don both are changing positions with me because he had the mortuary, he had the means to do it. Yeah, so let's listen to it one more time.
In my life. Well, when there's an abduction, I mean, what else would you call it? Yeah. I don't understand that. He was either hiding in the weeds there, waiting for the shade. He was either come in the basement. But yeah, I mean, we weren't 30 feet. They weren't 30 feet away when she got gone.
I understand that law enforcement has to build a case. I understand that that takes time. But I think that by now they should have a case. I believe that I could take the facts that I'm presenting in these 2 videos, and I'm not a lawyer, but I believe I could take them and convince 12 people that what happened that day was an accident. I believe Grandis's timeline that Candace went and met Don, and that Summer never come back home. Hypothermia, dry drowning, whatever. She didn't make it. I understand why Candace didn't want to call the law. I understand why Don didn't want to call the law. SA, physical abuse, neglect. And because it's a felony, because she's under 8 years old in the state of Tennessee. I mean, there's many, many reasons not to call the law. But, there's a really good reason to call the law. When your daughter perishes and you decide to cover it up, and now half the world's out here looking at her, but you're going to come on here and drop all these clues, especially in the first interview, and then the soundbite clip I had of you saying it's impossible for there to be evidence. That's because you know there isn't any, because you made sure that it all got burnt up or buried so deep under some cement pylons or a foundation of a house. She's not in a drywall wall, people. She's under some concrete or she's been cremated and she's in the. I really appreciate y'all taking the time to watch this video. It is a lot of opinion.
Like I said, in America, all persons are innocent until proven guilty in a court of law.
And we thank everybody who's trying so hard and praying so hard. And she's an awesome young lady, and we just want her back. But, yeah, there's always going to be haters, and it's always going to be that way in this world. And we just want to focus on the good friends and Christian people that are trying to help us and praying for us and praying for Summer. And we thank them from the bottom of our hearts. And that's the kind of people we try to relate with and socialize with. So we don't know anything about, no red truck, or we hardly know many of our neighbors. I mean, because we just try to be around good people.
Well, there he goes again with we don't know nothing about that red truck. That's that red herring, huh? Don't nobody know nothing about that red truck, but that's not what they said before. Because now Candace has come out and said she knows exactly who has a red truck, Jody Sue's mother. Speaking of Jody Sue, Don said they just try to be around good people. They don't hardly know none of their neighbors. Well, according to Jody Sue, they know her husband pretty well. Don does. Evidently, according to Age, Candace does too. He texts her and says it's done. So, We don't know our neighbors. We don't know nothing about the red truck. And we just want to be around good Christian people. Your neighbors have been your neighbors for years. Obviously, they've been pretty good to you. I don't think they've ever really give you too much trouble. You might not have always got along, but I mean, they really ain't done too much to you, have they? But you blamed your neighbor Fred. You blamed Jody Sue and her husband Andy. You blamed your co-worker Dudley. You blamed the drug addicts. You blamed the RSOs, which you had one living in your house with you. Had one in there with all 4 of your children, which I still am blown away by. It's just unbelievable. Unbelievable. And like I said, whether you had anything to do with her going missing or not, you knew that CPS couldn't get a hold of her. You knew that would be bad. I guess the people who did take her would be worried about going to prison, because in Tennessee, a child under 8 years old that's been abused or neglected or anything like that that you get charged with, it becomes a felony if they're under 8. And she was the only child left in your home that was under 8 years old. It just blows my mind. I understand why you wouldn't want to call the police if it was an accident. I understand that fear. I do. I've been out there. This ain't my first rodeo. I totally understand that fear. But sometimes you have to just swallow it and man up and put your big girl panties on or whatever, and you have to do what's right.